welcome to a community that strives every day after that unfinished vision of America. Boston is determined to build the America we deserve by ensuring that the fullest meaning of those words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, actually reach every single person, every family in our community.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
There are people who profit off of disunity. There are people who become billionaires off of, not just attacking folks' trust in the government that they elect in a democracy, but also attacking folks' basic trust in each other. And I say that as somebody that, it certainly made my bones as, one of, the biggest and loudest critiques, some of the romanticism about, what America is, what people are, what Americans are, exceptionalism, and so forth. But I never do that out of a deep belief in innate evil in people, or an inability, for people to reconcile themselves, to each other. I was, listening to the Pledge of Allegiance earlier, which quite frankly I was not raised to participate in. But I did feel like it was important to participate in it here. And the reason why is because even as we have our particular individual beliefs, you can't make a new home. Like, this is my home. I'm here. I'm a part of this. You know what I mean? I may not like how it happened. It may make me really, really angry how it happened sometimes. I may not like how politics are being conducted, but I am American. I am American. And that is on clap for that. I have a much more mixed reaction. But it's the truth. You understand what I'm saying? It's a basic truth. And once you accept that truth, then you got to figure out how we're going to get along. And I think one of the tragedies, particularly I would say out of politics of the past 4 years, is that there have been so many people who have made so much money, not just in destroying that basic trust, but in destroying the very idea that you were even part of, the same sort of thing. I saw this thing, and I understand if we want air conditioning in here, but I saw this, my mayor just gave this advisory, please keep your air conditioning at 78. And for the purpose of sowing division, for the purpose of, harvesting more clicks, which are themselves money, by the way. Folks made like this is not a thing that, governments, in red states and in blue states and even, up to the White House themselves, don't advise. For what? For what? And I think the answer to that is so much of our politics now happens not in person like we are now, not across a dinner table, not across a lunch table, but it happens out of our phones, on machines, and we say things that are not always our best selves. And on the other side of that are people harvesting that attention for money. A guy's a trillionaire right now. That owns the money, he's a trillionaire. And part of that is controlling the network by which people talk to each other. And so I think if you want to move to a place where you have greater trust, we have to understand that the kind of values that were spoken about before me, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, the trust you talk about, that's not magic, man. You know what I mean? You don't just sit back and that sort of naturally happens. It's a done thing. It has to be built. And I think we are unfortunately under the sway, certainly in one party, but not just in that party, of people who have made their bones by telling us that we can't do things together, that government, is not to be trusted, that, government is not to be, that we need to, run, certain people. I'm all good with running certain people out, by the way. But I'm not good with running the institutions themselves out. And the last thing I'll say about this is, I have, for the past 10 years of my life, spent some time abroad. And one of the things I have realized, like I've seen countries that do not have the wealth that this country has, and yet are themselves wealthier countries. And what I mean by that is they do not have individuals who are as wealthy as we have here. But they manage to do great things. Their airports are better than ours. Their public spaces are better than ours. I went to Faneuil, which is not, an economic peer of this country in any shape or fashion. And yet when the sun set, at the end of the day, I watched the people of Dakar come out and enjoy a public, collective moment of exercise and physical fitness on equipment that, must have been built some 50 years ago. And so, I think we have to recognize that something has not just been lost. Something has been taken.
250 years. America still arriving, still introducing itself, still carrying luggage it pretends belongs to someone else. Today, we gather inside Faneuil Hall, a room where history argues with its own reflection. Named for a man who traded in human lives, remembered for voices that insisted human lives could never be property. Perhaps that is America.